So 4 years ago, I moved to a place in the Midwest of the United States. And when I moved in, I had a lot of people come to my door wanting me to, go to their church, and from all different denominations: Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians. I mean, you name it. They all showed up at my driveway moving day wanting me to come and experience their church. And there's so many different interpretations of what the Bible says. And so I'm kind of one of those people who, I'm curious about things, and because people seem to be so consumed with religion around here, I thought I'd educate myself at least, and so I could have like an intelligent conversation next time somebody came to the door, or somebody I worked with. And so I'm one of those people who kind of reads things for themselves. I get paid for problem solving, and that's primarily how I make my living. Is I look at something that doesn't make any sense, and I take it all apart and try to piece it back together in a way that makes sense, and in a way that's understandable, kind of simplify things. So that was basically my approach. And I said, okay, well, in order to do that, you pretty much have to start, reading it. So I read a few chapters of the Old Testament, and then I read the New Testament. And then something finally clicked when I read the New Testament about what it all meant, because it was all very mysterious, and none of it really makes any sense when you read it. And the way people explain it doesn't make any sense to me either. So basically, let me read for you the verse that tied it all together, and now it makes more sense. If not, I can apply this logic to the whole Bible, and it really makes sense. So hopefully people watching this blog will do the same thing. Okay, so if you go to King James and go to Matthew 20:22, a lot of the Bibles have totally reinterpreted this and took out a bunch of words and made it say something else. So you can either go to the literal translation and read this, or the King James, because King James was written long before people started to figure out that they didn't want the Bible to say this anymore. But basically it says, okay, so the whole premise of the story to begin with is this lady brings her two kids to Jesus, and she wants them to have the Jesus experience because she's heard, so many things or whatever. So when she brings her kids to Jesus, Jesus basically kind of steps back and says, whoa, these kids are very young, and I don't think they're ready to have, my Jesus experience. And so here's what Jesus says. He says, but Jesus answered and said to them, ye not know what ye ask. Are ye able to drink the cup that I shall drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with? And they said unto him, we are able. So this is key. What Jesus is saying is the baptism is a drink. And this isn't the only verse that talks about the baptism being a drink. Jesus has said this in a few different verses. There's the story of him changing the water to wine. There's a story at the well. And I'll get into all this stuff later. And then you ask the question, well, what's in the drink, or what is he making? And I'll kind of get into that later too. But if you ask any Christian that talks about the baptism, about that verse, they'll look at you like you have three heads. They won't understand why you're saying this. It's because they've either never read it, or when somebody has gone over this, they had skimmed over it and they say something about the future crucifixion or something like that. But if you apply this logic, the fact that the baptism is a drink that Jesus knew how to make, and you start reading the Bible and you start reading about all the secrets and all the persecution and all the stuff happening back then, is the same thing very similar happening today. So this is where my blog starts, and I'll be getting into lots of different things concerning this and other things related to religion that I have discovered over the past few years in my amateur study of sociology and religion. So I hope you follow my blog. Thanks.